Okay. All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Checking everyone can hear me. Yeah. Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to today's session. Sorry, we're running a little bit late, but inshallah, now we're ready to go. Alhamdulillah, so we've organized today's event in preparation for Ramadan. It is organized by the Waltham Forest Muslim Parents Association in collaboration with the North London Parents Association and WFCOM, who are the Waltham Forest Council of Masjids. Alhamdulillah, we've been set up for about 6-7 years now, and we've been tackling a lot of the different issues that we face as parents in our local communities, areas, and boroughs. Alhamdulillah, we've looked into many different topics. Previous Ramadans, we've looked at taqwa and revelation of the Quran. And in preparation for this Ramadan, we thought we'd look at nurturing our children, strengthening their iman, inshallah. As we have just 1 week left, mashallah, exciting times. We have under 1 week, nearly 1 week, next Saturday or Sunday, 1st of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to reach Ramadan, Ameen. All of us, alhamdulillah, excited. It's such an exciting time for us, for our families. We've all started preparing for Ramadan, and even preparation. I've been having discussions at home with family and speaking to my friends and even my daughter, and everyone's preparing in different ways, which is really interesting, actually. Some people are, they've started watching more videos and learning more about the fiqh and the importance. Other people's have bought their planners and they've started, planning what it is that they want to do during Ramadan, targets, completion of Quran, more ibadah. Other people have started, writing down a list of what it is that we want to achieve during this month. Some of us are looking at, how our previous year has been and changes that we want to make, things that we want to seek forgiveness for and things that we want to improve in our life. So Ramadan, it's a beautiful journey and it's different for everyone. We all, internalize Ramadan and we have our personalized goals. As a parents forum, we thought about looking into, this idea of parenting during Ramadan, because even conversations that I've been having with my friends and family, we all have different realities. We have different family structures. We have, children of different ages. Some of us have got babies. Some of us have got toddlers. Others of us have got older children. Some even have married children and grandchildren. So it's completely different how we, see Ramadan, plan Ramadan, and prepare for it. So today, inshallah, we will be looking at nurturing our children during Ramadan. And we have a beautiful sister, mashallah, lovely sister, good friend of ours, Sister Fawzia, who is a head teacher. She's the head teacher of Islamic Shakhsiya School. She's a parenting coach and mentor and has done many presentations for us before as well. Inshallah, she will be delivering today's session on nurturing our children during Ramadan. During the presentation, inshallah, we do have the chat feature. You don't need to keep your cameras on like our previous sisters events. We're happy for you to be comfortable. The event is being recorded. If you have any questions during the session, please note them down or write them in the chat. The sister will present her presentation, the whole presentation, inshallah, and then there will be opportunity for question and answers at the end. So please use the chat for comments and questions, inshallah. Bismillah, over to you, Sister Fawzia.
Start off by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to all the families that are joining today. First and foremost, start off with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name and praising him. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Maliki yawmiddin, إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Like Sister Zim has said, it is just a short few days that we have remaining until we're in, inshallah, the middle, the beginning of Ramadan, the middle of this blessed time that we've been waiting for the whole year. And each one of us, we welcome Ramadan in different ways. Like Sister said, you know, this visualization that you have in front of you of this family who's, you know, you see the excitement and the happiness and the, you know, there's a togetherness. And just, you know, maybe take a few moments right now, right at the beginning of this session, to just think about what's the current functionality or the state of your family's, you know, foundation right now in welcoming Ramadan. Where are you at together as a family? How are you looking to welcome Ramadan as a unit? And I'm going to say that a lot today because it's very much about us as families, you know, and how is it that we're going to be together in Ramadan, and we're going to be promoting and enjoying and you know, sort of driving the togetherness of this family unit, which is so important in our communities right now. So alhamdulillah, we are going to have different things that different families are doing, but on the whole, the aim and purpose is to have a new vision, a new way forward for our families, and that we're all on this journey together. And that's, I think, one of the messages, inshallah, I'm hoping that will come across through today's presentation. So Abu Huraira narrated that Allah's Messenger said that, oh, when Ramadan comes, all the doors of Jannah are open, and the doors of Jahannam are closed and the shayateen are locked. And this is so important to share with our children because it starts us off on a very positive footing. Like everybody can and is able to achieve Allah's pleasure through any of the doors of Jannah, and that Allah's making it easy for us to come close to Him, and that He's even locked away all the shayateen, that the big shayateen that whisper to us. So sharing this with our children should be an opportunity for empowerment. You know, people talk about how they do sessions with, you know, about positive language and putting down positive statements that will help them to become you know, more engaged about ownership and realizing goals and being really, really driven. I think this is, so for me, one of the hadiths that I always think, subhanallah, you know, like, isn't that amazing that our Lord, our Rabb, He is coming closer to us and giving us these opportunities, multiplying our rewards. Surely all of us can achieve something, you know, and it's in our reach. We can do this. And I think sharing this hadith and really giving everybody that feeling of, you know, empowerment is a very positive way to begin the blessed month of Ramadan. And I just as we continue thinking about Ramadan and how we're going to welcome it, how we're going to live it, how we're going to develop ourselves, change through it, inshallah, it makes me think about how is it that living here in Britain today has changed so much from 30 years ago, because about sort of 28, 29, 30 years ago, there was a time when there was a massive revival in the universities, and some of you will remember, you know, in the masajid, and, you know, there was venues were being hired out, you know, there was Sharia institutions and colleges set up, and we were all engaged in this very dedicated journey, program of study, learning about our purpose of life, and understanding, what was taqwa, and to understand what was what did it mean to have the pride to being a Muslim, having conviction and confidence in our deen. And that was so empowering at the time. It was like a continuous, if you like, momentum that was like, you felt that it was just touching the lives of so many Muslims, and especially the younger, the shabab, the younger people at the time, and then also, it changed the face of what masajids should be doing for their communities. And on reflection, I was thinking about how is it that things have actually changed from that time 30 years ago to now, and it seems like it's gone full 360, where we're just sort of back at this point where so many masajid are not facilitating halaqat. You're not having the opportunity to discuss Islam. You haven't got circles of learning going on everywhere in different parts of the communities. And our challenges are new. Our children and our young people are facing challenges that we never thought at that time would be what they are. And that should mean that we have to rethink now. Okay, what are the needs of our families? What are the needs of our children today in the Ramadan 2022? What do we need to put right? What is it that is causing so much concern and worry, and actual real deep-rooted if you like fear that the deen of Allah amongst our young people and our children is becoming very tokenistic and an add-on to their life. So we need to really start at that point where we're thinking, what are the problems, what are the issues, what are the concerns that we've got for our families, for our local community, and for the wider ummah. What are they? What is it that's missing? What do our children need? What do our families need? And we're living in the time right now that things which are by Allah's law not acceptable fall into realms of haram, and we're they've been sort of mulled over, and it becomes and we can't see the difference between urf, like local practices or cultural practices, and where actually is it that the deen of Allah states and sets out our worldview and our review of the akhirah, and what's our purpose and our goal. So we need to begin at that point where we're starting to think, right, what is it? We need to see what is clear hukum and what is clear from the Quran and the Sunnah as being our path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Sirat al-Mustaqim, and what is it where there's a gray area, and where is it that there's complete destruction and away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and going towards the path of disobedience. And this is an opportunity that we can sit down and start to reflect, what is it that we're going to be accountable for, basically? What will Allah ask us on the day of Qiyamah about distinctly as mothers and fathers? What have we been given this amana, and have we fulfilled it? How are we fulfilling the amana? Will it be that we are, we're going to be standing there and saying that it was that the society was so strong I couldn't, or my environment wasn't conducive enough, I couldn't push my children towards the khair. I couldn't enjoin the good and forbid the munkar. I couldn't, pull their hearts towards you, Ya Rab. Do we want to be in that state where we want to be saying that? So pondering over our purpose of life, where are we right now as individuals, as families, and then really thinking about an action plan that's going to make a change. Because they say, isn't it? It takes like about a month, say 30 days or so, to create a new habit. So if we utilize these 30 days and think, right, okay, we're going to use these 30 days to change that which we, or get rid of that which we don't want in our lives, which is taking us away from the worship of Allah, and put in its place specific actions, and more importantly, to instill the understanding of Islam and make clear the aqidah of our deen, and make sure that we know where everything fits in our purpose of life, for our children, for ourselves. And it's only through that reflection, personally, I think, that changes will come. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in his own example, where he used to sit and reflect, and worry even about society. Certainly we are at that time where we should be worried. This is, so many signs of akhir zaman, where we're thinking we're near the end of time. The science, there's so many fitan, and what do I need to do to hold on to the rope of Allah? What do I need to instill in my family, my children, to hold on to the rope of Allah? And this is a point for us to, specifically spend long hours thinking about, and make dua for, and really come together with some sort of goal or action plan that we want to achieve. And we'll talk about that later as well. So on that note of reflection, if we utilize this month of Ramadan to start the process of thinking, of pondering and reflecting, turning off all the distractions, and I mean, things like setting aside a gadgetless, afternoon or afternoons, okay, weekends, that help us to be in the moment with our families, with ourselves. Sometimes we're not thinking about even our own souls, what they require from us, because we're fleeting between one social media platform to another, and sometimes escapism, just watching, this sort of YouTube rabbit holes, and Allah protect us from, these sort of just allowing our time to be wasted like that. But it's really important that we're honest. We start with ourselves as adults. We're responsible for our children, our families, and be honest with ourselves. What do we really, as a person, me, myself, what is my priority? What do I think is a priority in my life? What am I busy with? Who am I surrounded by? Who is it that's influencing me? Because it's a big thing about influencers now. We're all, it's actually really apt, because it just goes to show you that as human beings, we are influenced by others and environments, and by actually having that name influencer just brings it home that yes, if the deen of Allah is not influencing your child, if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not influencing your child, then somebody else is, and that's plain to see now. Before, you had a situation whereby, I was just, thinking that if there was, somebody who was drunk, or someone was taking drugs, or there's these vices. Myself growing up, I never actually saw that as a young girl. But now our children are not protected like that. They could just look out of the window, out of their bedroom window, and they'd see so much, which would be negative for their shakhsiyah. Or going on a bus ride, or being in an environment where then there's no enjoying the good and forbid the munkar. And all of that is shaping who your child is and who they're going to become. And the thoughts that they carry, the inclinations of their heart. And this is what our job is that we're there to win their heart for Allah. That's your goal and purpose, especially until they're baligh. Your mission is to win their heart for Allah, to incline their heart to love Allah, because their fitrah is still pure, and they're still at that point where they're listening. And so, thinking and being honest with ourselves, and about how we are going about fulfilling our mana of being a parent to our children, what we prioritize in their eyes, helps us to really reframe and rethink where we should be correcting what we're doing wrong, but also questioning whether or not that, if that is rooted in Islam and if there is accountability attached to that. And being truthful with ourselves is so important, because that will help us to really make specific changes, and guard our own nafs and our own selves from falling into this sort of, gray area where we tell ourselves, no, actually I can justify that my niyyah for that was this, or my niyyah for that was that, but the end goal, what was it? Did it fulfill that pure niyyah that maybe you had? And if it didn't, then you have to question yourself, am I being truthful to myself? As an ummah, we must rectify our situation, our condition, and it starts off with ourselves, one person, me, myself, in front of Allah, and then the people that we're accountable for, our families, our children. And that's the only way we will see change and progress and development. And I think this empowering of our own situation and within our families, inshallah, it will be a turning point for our local community, and then national, and then the ummah, because we have to think that we're going to be accountable, we're going to be responsible for the deen of our children, the deen of the local community, and this is why, mashallah, alhamdulillah, tabarakallah, there are so many people involved in giving dawah, but often we neglect our own families, and we don't, because we're so engaged and front facing and looking out and outside sometimes our own homes, we're not thinking about our own children. And we need to understand the goals and aspirations that we have for our own children. Are they rooted in Islam? Are they akhirah focused? Because ultimately, yes, we must take apart from the dunya, but our focus should always be that we want to get success in the akhirah, in the eternal life. And then people say, well, what does success look like then? And every one of us has got a different view of what success is. Some people think it's, making sure that you've got your own home, and you own a car, and you've got X amount in the bank. You go on holiday, whenever there's a vacation for your children from school. We need, a lifestyle. We shape a lifestyle that helps us feel that picture success. But then it's so important that we ask ourselves, where is that thinking coming from? Where is that rooted? How have we come to that level, that point of thinking? And how does that, and how did the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam come to show us how we should live? And I'm not in no way means saying that we shouldn't have or hold on to or facilitate certain recreational things for our children. I'm not saying that at all, or for ourselves, but it's having a balance and making sure that in the context of where we're at right now, and what's happening in this particular era, and how important are those times and recreational things that we do in relation to us holding on to the rope of Allah and teaching our children this conviction and having ourselves this conviction and confidence and that, you know, ideological holistic awareness of what it means to be a Muslim. So it brings me to the question, how do we frame fun and happiness? Because often I hear sisters saying, yes, but you know, they've got friends and they also need to, they need to be able to say they've been somewhere and they're all going to this theme park and that theme park, and you know, I don't want my child to feel left out, and they're only children and let them have fun, and we don't want to take away their childhood. And you know, we have all these conflicting messages constantly. But it's focusing on, again, what is it that we're going to be accountable for instilling in our children? What is obligation to instill in them? How can we keep their fitrah, their deen pure for the sake of Allah? So that will be their reference point. So it's understanding where do we draw the boundaries for our children? You know, what does it look like for them to lead pure lives for the sake of Allah? And how can we shape that in the context that we're living in right now, in the context of the world and what's going, excuse me, what's going on? And how does this link to our goal and purpose? So through that reflective process, it's about understanding where we would like our children to be, where we would like our families to be, and doing away with the pressures of whether it be family, friends, society, cultures, is doing away with that, because you have to keep taking yourself back to the time when you're going to stand in front of Allah. And sometimes it's difficult to tell your teenage child that, no, actually, you can't go out this late, or you cannot have this particular thing right now, and that the salah is fardan, it's time for Jama Salah, and we need to pray that together. We need to be focused on that. But if you put yourself right at that moment in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having to answer for what was the right thing to do in that time, then it's a no-brainer. You know what the right thing to do is. So don't allow the excuses to come in, or the, you know, the pressures of you know, modern society to sway your heart and your mind from doing the right thing and having that conviction to raise your children upon the straight path. Remember, you are raising the next generation of believers that are going to inhabit the earth. That's a massive, massive task, and it can't be done part-time. I'm sorry. It has to be something that you are dedicated to. That's your goal and purpose in life. That's what you're doing. You're engaged in raising the next generation of believers. And that has to be something you've got to give your time to, your focus to, your full attention, and you've got to be in the moment with it. It cannot be a pastime. And these are the sorts of things that when we're sitting and reflecting, they should push us to take action, to push us to move forward in a positive manner, inshallah. One of the key things that I believe is really, really important before the onset of Ramadan, and we have a few days, is really, you know, husbands and wives sitting together, you know, talking about where they're at with regards to their family, and you know, where do they see that they would like to make changes, how are they making sure that they are nurturing their children to be the best Muslims, to have you know, a strong aqidah and high level of taqwa, have a pride in being a Muslim, you know, for them to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger, you know, have a conviction and confidence in Islam, have stronger self-esteem, to be resolute and persistent, to be motivated for the sake of Allah, to be capable and skillful, progressive and self-initiating, solution-orientated. So these are sorts of things that we should be thinking, are we doing this for our children? And this is so that they can be the next, inhibitors of the earth that are enjoining the good with the munkar and treading the path of the prophets. I think first and foremost for our dear brothers, I think that you are one of the keys to making sure all of this happens, or should I say the main key, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you this massive amana to be the amirs of your families in the communities, and this is very, very important that you take the leading force and drive, so that it's very clear that this is something that is serious. A father does that. He sets the scene. He says, he directs, and he instills this clear vision of what's going to be happening, and this is why the reflective process is so important, so that when you do make that decision, you've done so much thinking about how it's going to happen and what's going to be the most important thing, and then you take that. And sometimes it can be challenging, because I think when you're working and you've got a variety of different responsibilities, actually having time to think through and reflect upon what's happening with the family, it can be a challenge. Sometimes it can be something that you keep intending to do but doesn't happen, and we need, I understand that you need downtime too. You need time to sort of clear your head, because you've been working and different environments and expectations. But as a father and a brother and a husband, these roles, they require for you to always be on the ball with regards to which direction are things going, and these are responsibilities that you have from Allah, and I think they are pivotal in making changes happen in our homes, in our local community, and in society, because we need people who are going to be taking the lead. We need our brothers to be going forward and saying, no, this is what's going to happen. This is the change that we're going to make. This is what we're going to do as a family. This is what we're going to do as a community. Let's start doing this, and let's initiate this. And sometimes we get caught up, between making sure that our families have got holidays every vacation, sort of every break, like if it's Christmas or Easter or what have you. We think, oh, make sure that we're paying for them to have this excursion, and make sure that they can do this. But ultimately, it's about asking yourself, is that going to be the thing that is going to save my neck from hellfire? Is it going to be the thing that I'm going to be able to say, yes, I did this for your sake, Ya Allah, you gave me an amana and I fulfilled it? And this is why, when we sit down and then start reflecting, we start to realize that the responsibilities from Allah are very specific, and it's about resetting that thinking. And everybody's talking about the big reset. I think actually, as Muslims, we need to reset. We need to first of all reset ourselves, and then reset our families and our communities, because we are on this path for a purpose. We need to make sure that we're diligently on that path, and that we are very conscious and aware that every minute of our time here, we want it to be our success, inshallah, in our akhirah. And that's something that we tell the children, and something that we share and we speak about, and that we talk about responsibility and accountability with our children, so that they grow up to understand that they will be accounted for. The angels will ask them about their actions. They cannot just do something and not think whether it's permissible or not, or whether it's within the Sharia or not. I think another thing that we should be engaged in as families is actually taking shura. Have shura with your local brothers and local sisters. Find out what is it that we need to be doing. What are the I think we do share what issues all our children are facing, but then being solution orientated and thinking what can we put into place for this Ramadan that's going to be a beginning of a different way of living and focus for our families. Like I said, having an akhirah focus, thinking about what is it that we're going to send forth, but also how is it that we're going to fulfill the responsibilities Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put on us. And so it's really key that we set personal, and I keep saying it about yourself, because ultimately if you don't start with you, and know, we do this worksheet with the children at school at the beginning of every year, and it's just called Who Am I? And the children have to talk about who they are, what their names are, what their inclinations are, what their favorite surah is, who's their favorite sahaba, their favorite prophet, what would they like to do when they grow up, favorite ayah of the Quran, favorite hadith. So that's a very simplistic way to understanding oneself, and that's the idea behind it, being truthful with oneself. But I think us as adults, it's important to ask yourself, who am I if I'm 30 or 40 or 50, or Mariam, I'm living in London, Ahmed, I'm living in Belfast or Wales or whatever. Who am I? What makes me who I am? So that we can sit down and understand ourselves. What's the baggage that I'm carrying? What issues maybe that I'm sort of lugging around with me that makes me sort of inclined to something, or not want to do something? What do I need to shed to really clear myself, mentally and emotionally and spiritually, of any negative baggage, so then you can be the true version of yourself in front of Allah, somebody who's striving to please Him. And I think it's also then setting family goals, looking at each one of your obligations to your family, all of us. What is fard? What is sunnah? Where is it mubah? Where is it mandub? Really thinking, okay, if I'm constantly in the mubahat, I'm just in that sphere all the time, how is it that we're going to nurture strong convictions in Islam if we're just always coasting in the mubah area? It's when we start to understand that we need to be in the realms of fard as much as possible, and wajib, so that we're constantly in the status of pleasing Allah and very clear about our actions, and knowing where we should be heading. So family goals, understanding where is that, are we falling short when it comes to living a life of a true Muslim in the shade of the Sunnah. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he came to perfect our actions and our adab, and came to teach us how to live the deen of Allah. So we need to be making sure that we're adopting that, and the practices are there, and it's live, we live them, Again, between all our families, we'll have very different perspectives. Somebody will say, yes, this is this is mubah, it's allowed, I let them, I'm okay with them celebrating this, I'm okay with them going to this place where people are watching something in congregation and there's lots of men and women. I'm okay with that, because I have to give them some alternative. I'm okay with them not adopting this particular practice or particular thing, because they're still learning, so I'm going to give them that leeway. And we all have our ways of nurturing our children. But ultimately, what we need to be clear about is that what is the end goal? Is the end goal actually to get to the point where we are completely practicing Islam in the correct manner and the fard is established? Or are we sort of just coasting and just going through the motions and saying, well, it's out of my hands after a certain age, I can't do anything? So really think about the individual goals for each of your children, you know, for shaping their shakhsiyah and inclining their heart towards Allah, and focusing them as Muslims, and making sure that you sit down and you think to yourself, what is it that they know about their deen? Actually understanding that, do they have a conviction for the aqidah? Do they understand what belief systems are? Can they relate that to what's happening around them? How they are applying Islam to their daily lives and practices? Is there aqliyah for Allah? Do they, with conviction, have a strong belief, and conceptually, do they understand what it means to follow in the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to worship Allah in the right manner? And do they know the fard knowledge of Islam? So, all of these things help us to understand, are our children, do they have all of what is fard knowledge? And then we can't have a perfection attitude. I mean, I don't think it's possible for them to know everything that they should know at a given age, but it's at least setting the goals. The whole point of today is understand that we need, as parents, this needs to be our mas'uliyah. We should be not sleeping at night knowing that our children don't understand what are the the branches of Sharia, and they don't, the Islamic way of life, and understanding the fiqh of how to live as a Muslim. Certain things are fard knowledge, and if they don't know that, it's our role to make sure that that we are giving them that. And I think once obviously you've gone through this shura process, and thinking and reflecting, then it's so important to write up a set of actions for Ramadan and put them on display. Things that you're making sincere niyyah to do, we are making sincere niyyah to, and then you list them. Maybe things that we're not going to do, things that we're going to try and tame our nafs from, whether it be social media and gadgets, because this is our biggest fitna at the moment, and we need to be on the front line of understanding what we need to do to safeguard our families from that fitna. That's what parents do, and they've done that, through time. I think one of the other things that is really essential is talking to our family, and as a family, and talking to our children about, the types of fasting that we want to experience in this Ramadan. And first and foremost is having that attentiveness to our children, developing a closer bond of trust and communication, and engaging in active listening. But you can only do that if you're present. If you're not, if you, like I said, I will say, if you're money rich and time poor, then you're not going to be able to do these things. Sit down right at the beginning of Ramadan and go through with the whole of the family the fiqh of Ramadan. Complete fiqh from start to finish. Obviously age appropriately, because some things we cannot say in front of the younger children. It's and that's so important as well, to maintain the haya of our children as much as we can. And then really, as a family, understanding the three types of fasting, the fasting of the ordinary person who's just making sure that all the fard of Ramadan are fulfilled, and then the fasting of the few, and this one is the one that of keeping the ears, the eyes, the tongue, hands, feet together with all the other senses away from displeasing Allah, and that even after broken the fast, we're in this we're in this sort of sense of, sincerity towards Allah, and that we're constantly, hoping and, in awe of the fact that, we want Him to forgive our sins and accept our siyam. And then obviously there's a fasting of the elite where, even our hearts, having that khashiyah, have that worry, that fear that Allah, hears the secrets of the hearts, and you don't even want to think anything or divert your attention towards anything apart from the things that, please Allah, that are going to make your Ramadan more fruitful. And it's really important that we do this so that the children develop a sense of spirituality, because we live in a society where spiritualism is sort of, the last thing on everybody's list, and it's seen as something as an option, and some people might need that and I don't need it, and all of this. And for our children, we need to instill this spirituality towards Allah, so that they have that consciousness that they're living in Allah's presence at all times. One of the things that I wanted to speak about was, the actual action plan. And the reason why I've got the first point on this is annual leave, is that I think that everybody's normally saving the annual leave for a lovely holiday somewhere, and time that they're going to have lots of downtime and fun and enjoyment, and it's going to be a time of not really thinking about targets and goals and such like. But actually, if we really thought about what we need for our own souls, and what our families are urgently in need of, then our annual leave should be booked for Ramadan. This should be our annual leave, because this is what is going to uplift us personally, our families, and our communities, because it is a reviving of the soul, the replenishing of, the nutrients that keep us on the straight path. And I personally, I would sort of, say to all our brothers and sisters, is that please do make sure that if you can't get annual leave for the entire month, which is quite a challenge, but even the last 10 days, at least, make sure that the last 10 days your annual leave is booked, so that you can really, really make the most of that time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and with your family. Our action plan should be that we've got clear goals, and it doesn't need to be 10, it could just be 2 or 3 important goals that mean something for the whole family. We've got all these, mashallah, we've got, all their brothers and sisters who are busy putting together all these journals and, writing programs and things like that, and, dua timetables and whatnot for Ramadan. But it's really important that we see for ourselves, on a very selfish personal note, that the Ramadan timetable should be for the whole family, first and foremost, because we're not selfish individuals who are just thinking only about improving ourselves and our own personal time. And I was just thinking that there are times when sisters are thinking, actually, this is just going to be my time, I'm not going to bother myself with everything, I'm just going to focus on my ibadah, and I need that, and I'm going to be really selfish about that. And the brothers are saying, well, I'm going to be going to Tarawih, and I'm going to go and do my itikaf, and I'm just going to be focusing on that. And children are sort of just there. They're just going through the motions and having these lovely iftars, and then they're going to the masjid but playing outside. And especially our young people, our teenagers, are just sort of left to wander. Half of them are on the street at Tarawih time, up to all sorts, we haven't got a clue. Rather, we should have our young person, our children, right beside us, because you're modeling for them what you want them to do in future years, and they are as important as any other adult in the Tarawih and we want for them to feel that connectiveness and togetherness, and also benefit from the recitation. But it cannot just be about like myself, my ibadah, my personal ibadah. However, we should set a timetable where it's one-to-one ibadah between us and Allah. Inshallah, that Allah give us tawfiq to, to see the nights of Ramadan, and spend qiyam, and really have that private time where nobody's awake, apart from us. And the children are, when the younger ones are quite, sort of sleeping. But even then, the teenage children, that where they are able to understand the importance of waking up for qiyam, get them up as well. Show them that, hey, look, this is time now for personal ibadah. And all of what we do, we've got to model for our children, but not just look at what I'm doing. Here I am, I'm off to the masjid to pray salah, and you stay at home. Rather, it's like, come along, we need to go to the masjid. Because since COVID, I think the masjids have sort of become little ghost towns, and the jama'ah has gone even shorter than it was. And we're just not utilizing the masajid as they should be. Daily family halaqah. I think if you can't do many other practices in Ramadan, just do this one. Do the family halaqah. Have a program for the halaqah, what you're going to go through. But okay, if you can't do hours on end, which is obviously difficult sometimes to engage the children, it could just be 30 minutes. For the younger ones, 15 minutes. And you could have a program that you're going to go through. Sit down, maybe make a program yourself, what you think is missing from the understanding. Right, we're going to go through this systematically through the whole of Ramadan. Maybe set a sadaqah goal, with the children. Obviously, something, that they can reach, is achievable, not something which is out of their sight that they can't do. It may well be that there's one particular elderly neighbor. You're going to make sure that your little girl or little boy, they go and they drop off just that one plate of food to them every day, because consistency is so important. Maybe they're going to make sure that they give £1 a day, and teach your children to give sadaqah from their own hands. It's a really, really important thing, because it instills in them this thing about giving. The giving hand is always better than the taking. It's really important that we do that. So this is a brilliant opportunity for setting sadaqah goals. It may well be that you're already doing some wonderful things in the community. Maybe it's a time to get other people on board. It's a time of sort of sending out messages to say, look, let's all get behind this, because this is, sadaqah doesn't diminish wealth. It's not going to take away anything from our earnings that Allah's already promised us and written for us. So the action plan is key. I think, if we don't have some sort of action plan, we will just, like I said, we'll start just coasting and really just mulling through the whole of Ramadan, and not really finding at the end of it whether we can actually look back and think, actually, we did achieve something. We worked towards something as a family. We were together on it, and that togetherness, if it's not there now, make Ramadan a time to build that, restore broken relationships, try to have empathy for one another, and try really to restore that family unit, and come together, because that in itself is a very important action plan. And before I open the session for questions and any comments, I think one of the key things that we need to make sure that for our children, we're very mindful of consumerism in Ramadan. And it can, we live in currently here, obviously, depending on your financial status, we live in quite a consumer society. And sometimes we think that loving our children and caring for them, making sure all their needs are met, it means we need to make sure that they have whatever they need, whatever they think they need. And Ramadan is no exception. So because we're feeling really generous, we want to do so, we want to really, pull their hearts towards Allah. We think like, okay, what can I give them? What can we do to like make them happy in Ramadan? Make them feel like, hey, Ramadan's so amazing, and sort of flashing lights and sunbeams, and it's all of that. But ultimately, consumerism just feeds greed, and that's not something that we want to do with our children. And it's really essential that we get them to be content with what we have, and content with sharing what they have with others, and their happiness should not be tied to tangible things or something that you're going to get for them and give them. And it's about asking those questions during your halaqat, talking about things like this with them, to change their inclinations. Another thing that often we get busy with is iftar feasts, and again, social media, subhanallah, we've got to again get away from the habit of people just sharing pictures of iftar and what they're eating and hashtagging, look, family with iftar with my family and all of this, because actually, if we understood Islam in the correct manner, that even if you were cooking something and your neighbor smelt it, it's upon you to actually share some of that food with the neighbor, just in case they're not eating. So for us to be at that point of like showing off and telling people about what we're doing in our homes, number one, it removes haya from your home anyway. Number two, this whole thing about proper, not just I don't want to say it's like uncovering the bounties of Allah that you have, but you're actually just you may be making somebody else feel really low about themselves and what they're eating, that they're having that little bit of dal and and stuff, and you're having this leg of lamb, and this is not again from the traditions of our deen, so and as well, on another note, let's not be busy with food. Like, it's really funny because as I was preparing the presentation, I was trying to look for like an image which I thought would really sort of show like this togetherness, and that first slide I showed at the beginning. But every other slide was the family having food, families having food, but that was all I could see. And I just thought, is this what Ramadan's about? It's just that it's iftars, massive iftars, and feeding people who have got food. Let's feed the people who don't have. Let's really get our ajr like that. And so it's just moderation. Let's have this is a deen of wasitiyya, let's be in the middle, the middle path. So let's have a fair balance, and really teach our children that it's not really about what types of food you're going to eat at the end of the day. Is that Allah's given you that some food to nourish your soul and your body, sorry, and you don't necessarily be thinking about the whole day about what we're going to cook for iftar today. I think recently I've seen this trend about Ramadan decorations, and everybody's got Ramadan balloons and Ramadan this and Ramadan that, and that's going very much into the hands of this whole consumerism. And you go into all of these big shops and they've got a Eid and Ramadan area, because obviously they're remember, they're business people, they've got to make their money, so they're really commercializing Ramadan now, and Eid gift bags and that, and we're just buying into all of this. We're and I understand that it's mubah, but it's allowed, it's not a problem. But in this society that we're living in now, it can be something that will sort of dilute the meaning and the purpose of our ibadah, of this particular ibadah in Ramadan. And we need to really think deeply about what actions that we are taking part in. And these sort of Ramadan decorations, and it's very much synonymous with sort of Christmas decorations and and doing all of that. So let's be moderate again, maybe make something a particular place, maybe decorate a sakina corner, an area where you're going to sit down and reflect. Maybe if it's for young children, you might want to do those things because it's really more about winning their heart for Allah. And so think deeply about what is it that you're engaging in, and what is that saying to the children, what message is it sending. I think another thing that I've seen recently is Advent calendars and Ramadan wreaths. Again, some of this is very much rooted in paganism. So really, really important that we don't just do certain things and make them a part of our spirit of Ramadan. And we've forgotten to go back to the asl, the root of what Ramadan focus should be. And again, this may be another goal that we need to as a family and as a community really think hard about, is even extravagance in Ramadan, extravagant gifts, becomes like competitiveness between families. If so-and-so had some samosas and pakoras on their iftar, now where they're inviting us, we've got to have that, we've got to do this, and we've got to have an elaborate dessert, and we've got to do. No, it's about feeding each other and getting the reward. So we lost the essence of why we're doing this in the first place. And then you come on to sort of Eid day, and the haram becomes halal in the undoing of all our efforts. And again, this Ramadan, it could be that we set a goal right from the beginning, and we're saying that what we're going to do is, we're going to have a specific way of celebrating Eid, and what it's going to look like, and how we're going to be engaging with the family and the community. And of course, we make sure that we're inclusive. So winning our young children's hearts for Allah, the shabab, the youth, we're giving them opportunities for being a part of the Eid gatherings and taking on certain responsibilities, being, serving the older people, cleaning the masajid ready for Eid day, maybe making little goodie bags for the little children who are going to come, go out and maybe, giving out sweets or what have you, dates or what have you, in the morning of Eid as everybody comes to the masjid, and giving the young people the opportunity to do that, so they feel a part of it, because if you don't include the young people into our practices during Ramadan and Eid, they then will feel like, well, it's for the older people, Islam is for the older people, it's for if you have a certain age. And finally, obviously, parading our private lives on social media takes away from the spiritual experience. Like I was saying earlier, we need to really speak with our young people, and make it a specific point of deconstructing what's going on social media platforms. So they've got a understanding. If you're not deconstructing the media, and this is sort of a little bit on a tangent, then the children will just see, and the young people will see things from the wrong perspective, not with Islamic lenses. And that's your role as a parent, is engaging them so that they understand, what does Allah SWT say about this? What does the Rasul say about this? And how do I need to think this through? What should be my perspective? I pray Allah SWT accepts all of our Ramadan. I pray Allah SWT forgives us and keeps us all far away from the fire, and has mercy upon us, and makes a way for us to please Him. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Please feel free if anybody wants to ask any questions, or if you have any comments.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Fawzia. We had a few questions during your presentation. If anyone else would like to make a comment or ask a question, please put your hand up and then we can unmute, inshallah. We had a question, how should we ensure that our children are less influenced by social media, as this is something which diverts us all, and how do we nurture them away from the influence of phones? Okay, let me just unmute one.
Sorry, sister, I couldn't hear you because there's a bit of interference.
That's okay. Shall I read the question again?
Yes, please.
Okay, one sec, let me go back to it. So the question was, how should we ensure, so this was the first part of your presentation, how should we ensure that our children are less influenced by social media, as this is something which diverts us all? How do we nurture them away from the influence of phones? And then I'll ask another question as well. Our children have multiple points of distractions. What practical advice can you give our children to focus on Islam as the fundamental framework for their life as a Muslim?
SubhanAllah. Very, very important questions, mashallah. First and foremost, about distractions. I think that it's really key that we ourselves present ourselves in a manner which then they would want to emulate and be like. Distractions, this dunya is about distractions, and we will always have something which is challenging our way of life and challenging, you know, this God consciousness, this muttaqi, you know, that we want to raise. I think first and foremost, try to think as a parent, you know, get a sheet of paper and think, what is it that your children have access to, which is a distraction? And, you know, literally write that down, write a list of all those things. And then next to them, write down, all right, how can you eliminate that? And what's the alternative to that? Okay. I personally believe that children don't need to be given you know, gadgets and things to distract them if you yourself are spending time with them. Distractions are given when you need to push them away from yourself, right? Okay, because you're too busy with whatever you've got to do. And I think that the first and foremost is you need to really think about what can you completely take away as a distraction. And then if you're left with, you know, the social media and the telephones, it's about age appropriateness. If you're giving your 8-year-old or your 10-year-old an old phone that you've got lying around because, oh, there's nothing else that you could do with that phone, so you might as well give it to them, and it's got access to the internet in the house, and they can get on all the social media platforms from it, then you need to be asking yourself, why is it that, you know, you're not thinking about the dangers of that? Okay. Second of all, everything must have rules. Okay, when we give our children anything, whether it be a gadget or whether it be, you know, access to social media or access to certain platforms, if we're not policing them, then there will be problems. But also we need to make sure that we are having, you know, we've got an awareness of how long are they being entertained by these platforms, what are they doing on there, and you know, provide active alternatives, like take them out with yourself, you know, going cycling together, going, you know, for a walk, going, you know, I don't know, on a orienteering trip, you know, make it so that you're giving them alternatives, and that way at least you'll diminish some of the distractions. The second question, which, mashallah tabarakallah, was a very, very deep question. I think personally, as parents, we have an obligation to, first of all, ourselves know what is further knowledge for our children. When the moment that we are blessed with a child, you know, even Tarbiyah is taught through the mother's milk. When they are, then if you're then developing an environment for them where they're nurtured, you know, in an Islamic manner, where they're hearing the Quran, there's a reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, you tell them about, you know, what, you know, the types of ibadah, about linking everything back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is allowed and what is not allowed within the realms of Ahkam Sharia, making the Quran, the Hadith, Dua, part of their everyday lives, making sure that their adab and their akhlaq is within the realms of Islam, their nafs as it grows. You know, we have milestones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. So at 7, we're told to tell them to pray, teach them rather to pray, and make sure that they're praying. At 10, there has to be a certain level of instruction and force used, that they must, you know, you have to make sure that that salah is being done. If you're aware of the nature of children, you'll notice that at 7, there's a certain level of awakening that happens in the child, the reasoning, understanding what now is fard from Allah. They start to understand that at that age. They're able now to understand Islamic concepts. It is your job as a parent to make sure that you're doing that, is to sit with them and teach them their deen. Don't leave it to somebody else to do. Don't think the school's going to, I've been running an Islamic school for almost 22 years now. I've seen over 700 children come through our door. I can certainly tell you that the families who are supporting their children at home and doing halaqat at home as well, and as well as what we do on a daily basis, the children have a very different understanding of Islam, and they live Islam in a very different way to the families where they're thinking the school will do everything, and at home we can have a very relaxed, you know, approach. The school's doing the Islam. You know, we can now khalas, because that's why we send them there. Now they're at home, we can give them, so, you know, no pressure, don't force them, miskin children, don't, you know, they might leave Islam if you start telling them they must do something. If you tell them it's fard, they might not want to do it. Now this is where we start falling into error, because what did Allah say to do? Okay, just do that. Teach them about their Lord, about the prophets, about the Sahaba, their Sunnah, and sow those seeds of taqwa from their cradle. So that's how you will grow children to have a conviction, who develop a strong aqidah and a high level of taqwa. Of course, hidayah min Allah. There's nothing to say, I'm going to do all of this and then this is going to happen. Look, but that's the promise of Allah, and our job is to make sure we fulfill our amana. Okay, you won't be able to instill, you know, in them the strong aqidah and the high level of taqwa or pride in being a Muslim if you're seeing them once every week because you're busy at work, or, you know, you only see them when they come home at the end of the school day and they're in a mood and they're having a strop about something, and then they're going to go off. You haven't engaged with them. However, if you sit down and say, right, this is our time for halaqah, and you must establish a daily halaqah in your house. How are you going to build this child if you're not sitting and engaging with them? How are you going to know that the problems with their shakhsiyah? How are you going to know the issues that they're facing, that their nafs has, the battles that they have? How are you going to know what, as you know, each of our children, we get to see what their thinking skills are like, the decision making, you know, if they're good at asking questions or not. Are they confident people? Are they able to express themselves? Do they have emotional literacy? We get to see that if we interact. But if you don't, how are you going to know that?
Yeah.
So if you want to really raise strong Muslims who have a conviction for their deen and they're holding on to the rope of Allah, you've got to make sure that you are making sure you're sitting with them, and conceptually you are I don't want to use the word training, but I say, you know, that you are inculcating this taqwa and this understanding of their deen, and making sure that they know the importance of having a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to knowing the Ahkam Sharia, to adopting the Sunnah habits, and that there's accountability in their actions, knowing the criterion of action, and knowing the basis of our deen, so that they can take responsibility, and also giving them responsibility. I really think that's important in raising the next generation of Muslims, is starting to give them some responsibility, so that it becomes second nature for them. Inshallah ta'ala. I hope in some shape or form I managed to answer that question.
I have received more questions, but M. Iqbal has their hand up. So
Yes.
Could you just, so M. Iqbal, if you just unmute and ask your question or make your comment, please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam.
Yeah. Actually, I just want to make a comment regarding what was said, which is the sister has brilliantly explained this. I just want to comment on that. I just want to add something to it. Basically, is phone, how we cut the phone from the children and all that. If we're asking, we need to go back to square one, because phone was initially a tool of working. It's a tool of work. Initially, it was like this, like, we're using the phone because of work, but we have made the phone into a toy, entertainment. We have made the phone for our children. Sometimes it's sad to see the parents, just to calm the child, the baby down, give her the phone and play with it. Sometimes, unfortunately, it is, the child is 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old. Give him the child, play with the phone, and don't trouble me, don't disturb me. So we inculcating this in the child. We are filtering this into the child, like, you need to have a phone for entertainment as a toy. It's a necessity. A second, please.
And you will get 2 food.
Excuse me, just give me 1 second. We know it's a necessity, but for our children, we need to cut it completely, right? And we need to cut this. And it is not something we're talking about, like, it's supernatural, like, it's the days that we are living. It's completely like, it's a necessity to understand. We need to have a phone, but as long as it concerns our children, like, not to give them the phone, not to have them attached to the phone. It's not something impossible. I'm doing it. I'm literally doing it. My children don't need a phone, don't need a game, don't need a smartwatch, don't need a none of these things, no gadgets, right? We are living and they're happy. And people ask, how do you do when they go to families where they have TV? I don't have TV in my home. How do you do when you have families, when you're going to family, to friends, they see the phone, they see the TVs, the gadgets? How do you cope with this? It's very easy. As the sister has mentioned, we have the halakas. You want to call it halakas? I call it ta'lim. Sit down with them and make the ta'lim. Explain the Sahaba, explain the harm of it in the language of a child. Like, we don't need this, we don't do this, And the child himself, he will be the answer to whoever is coming to him with a phone. His friend has a phone. His friend has a smartwatch, but it does not affect my child, because we have sit down and make ta'lim, as it said. Don't let anyone to teach your children deen. Do it yourself the way you want to do it. And the way you should be doing it is the way of how Rasulullah taught us and how the Sahaba did it. That's it.
Jazakallah.
Jazakallah.
Fawzia, we've got a few more.
Yes.
We've got a specific one regarding toddlers. Any tips on installing Ramadan spirit in toddlers? But linked to that, we've got what are halal Eid celebrations for our children as they all compare to Christmas, and also how can parents avoid imitating others and others' cultural events? I understand imitating others is not right, but what else can we do to excite our children for Eid and Ramadan? So around Ramadan spirit, specifically toddlers, and preparing, fun and
Jazakallah. I understand that question. I think that we are projecting our own notions of fun and excitement and happiness onto our children, because children are very simple especially I'd say up until the age of sort of 7 or 8, definitely they don't really need much, as long as they're in an environment whereby there's either family there, or you've got same age friends, and you don't necessarily need to do these grand displays of celebrations, because more than likely they will remember the fact that they were happy and that they were with you, and they shared a cupcake, and they had some ice cream, and those are the things that they're going to remember. They won't remember the pageantry and all the pomp that goes around that display of Eid celebration. So I think don't trouble yourself too much, sisters and brothers, about going all out in that sense. I think if the family home is the nucleus of our communities, it's always a celebration when if you're all together, you've gone to pray salah together, which again is such a massive sunnah that so many of our cultural cultures rather, or cultural habits don't inculcate that within our communities. We say only the dad will go off to pray the salah, and it even said the menstruating women should come out, the women who unmarried sisters should come out for the Eid salah. So it actually is doing the sunnah things and making them really important is enough. It should be enough for our children. If we like I said, deconstruct Christmas celebrations and Easter celebrations and Halloweens and all of these, if you deconstruct them for your children, they will realize that they have no meaning and no grounding and no essence in them. But if you don't do that, then obviously it's going to look like it's really, their heart is inclined towards that and they want to mimic it. But if you actually deconstruct it and you sit and you explain it, and now I'm talking about sort of children over the age of 10 and stuff, and you sit down and say, actually, do you know what that's about? Do you know how that celebration came about? Do you know why they do it? It's rooted in this, it's rooted in that. So please, I think, please make sure that you're thinking of how you can conceptually clarify other practices for your children, so that they can see that Islam is the truth and the pure path, and that following within, we always stay within the realms of the Sunnah. And often I say to the children, what would the Prophet ﷺ say if he saw this? What would he say? So sometimes it's asking them that, how can we do something nice, but not too much, because we don't want to do israf, we don't want to be extravagant and wasteful, and Allah doesn't like the people who waste. Let's do, what would be just taste, what would be nice to do, and remember, it's up to you, children, they will, parents are the ones that, they direct their children and should have and do have the most influence over their children, inshallah ta'ala, for the khair. So they're more likely to take from you. You're their inner voice, and if you give them a grounded understanding and conceptual understanding of why it would be not right to do such and such a thing, then there will be, and it's about having like-minded company. You also, it's really important that you've got like-minded families, and you all make that niyyah that actually, do you know what, we're going to do this. And you hear about these people, isn't it? These, new age people, and they live this really simple life, and then out in the bush somewhere, and don't have any shoes and whatnot. But there's a whole sort of group of people doing this, a movement, because they want to go back to this simple living. Are we not able to do that? We don't want. How can we really purify our deen for the sake of Allah and go back to the asl, so that we can taste the sweetness of it, and that inshallah our children are not affected by the consumerism and the whole sort of chasing the desire aspect. Because today it will be this, you're going to have balloons, and next year you're going to have something, you need to have something bigger, because we did that before, and it was, we're going to do the same thing again. Do you see? So try not to feed into that too much. Try and do something really alternative, but also rooted in Islam. And remember, Ramadan is a month that the children actually do feel like that. Even the children, they've got this like, yeah, that's okay. They'll go with the flow. Inshallah. I hope that's helped.
Jazakallah, Jazakallah, that's fine. Any other question or comments? Would anyone like to put their hand up? That's all the written ones completed. Give anyone? No, that's fine. If not, we can end there. Jazakallah, Sister Fawzia. I really appreciate today's session, and from the questions and the comments, alhamdulillah, we can see that a lot of people have taken a lot from your session today, and I hope everyone takes the key messages with them and implement them, reflect on them. It is a journey for all of us. Parenting is a journey. It doesn't matter if you've got newborns, toddlers, teens, or even older children. It's just ongoing, and taking it back to the point that you made, that is important for us, no matter what stage that they're at, where we're at within our journey, Ramadan, out of Ramadan. It's always important for us to understand this amana that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, our children, and we want to nurture that iman within them at all times, and always think about what is our purpose here, what is our role as parents, and what it is that we want to instill in our children, despite all the challenges that we have spoken about. And there are challenges, and this is why we've set up this forum, so that we can come together as Muslim parents and discuss these issues. We're not alone. We are a strong community, and we need to just come together and raise awareness about certain topics and other things, just to come together and speak about these issues, to guide one another and nurture each other as well. So Jazakallah for coming in and discussing that with us today. We do have another event, inshallah, a follow-up to this one. This was our pre-Ramadan one. Let me just share my screen. This one will be on what does it mean to live by the Quran. And again, it's just continuing with the discussion that we've had today in terms of how do we build that love for the Quran within our children. So nurturing our children with the love for Quran during the month of Ramadan. This will be on Sunday, the 17th of April, inshallah. Again, if you just register, and we will send you the link, and it will be nice to continue this during Ramadan, inshallah. This is a family event, so it's for mom, dads, and children. And then for sisters, we will be having a sisters only event, and that's on Friday, the 22nd. And that will be on, again, similar theme, nurturing the love for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam during the month of Ramadan, inshallah. So yeah, Jazakallah khair for joining us. I hope it was beneficial. I make dua we all reach Ramadan, inshallah, and it be a blessed time for us all, and that we reap the rewards and come out better Muslims, inshallah, and a more stronger Muslims and a unified ummah, inshallah. And we will end there, inshallah. I'll end with dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafil khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu s-salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Ameen. Assalamu